Listen, welcome back. You know, we can never go more than a few days without seeing what Israel's up to in the Middle East. What the big bad bullies up to. Who they picking on next? Is it Lebanon? Is it Iran? Is it Egypt? Whoever. They won't mess with Egypt, though. Listen, it's been in the news lately. You know, Israel has a whole ground force invasion within Lebanon. They took out the top Hezbollah commander within Beirut. They fired into Beirut. Iran fired a ballistic missile attack towards Israel. It seems like the Iron Dome missile defense system took everything out, and now we're basically waiting for Israel to respond, which they said they would. It seems like they're just Israel's just trying to soak this thing, and not even Israel. Certain leaders, Netanyahu, is trying to soak this thing out for everything it's worth and every little drop of blood. I have a couple of videos how Iran attacked Israel. Then we have how Israel attacks Beirut and it vows a very strong response to Iran. And then we have some, I like democracy now. They always got some intelligent people up there talking about the situation. So a Lebanese lawyer warns Israel against using war to create a new Middle East and gaining new territory. And then we'll see basically the some without confirmation the different types of ways basically the Hassan Nasrallah attack, the leader, how Israel could have done it. So let's just get it started without further ado. Some of you might have fast forwarded from here. Let's listen in.
From the flight deck of an airliner, a view of Iran's mass launch of missiles towards Israel last night, the lack of warning to civilian aviation, a sign of the will to surprise, a sign too of the risks deemed worth taking. The US Center for Naval Analyses traced that launch location to a valley south of the Iranian city of Shiraz. In all, Iran has an estimated 180 ballistic missile launchers. That's the same number of missiles that Israel says were used in last night's attack, travelling more than 1,000 miles. So, what exactly did Iran fire? Iran says its latest Fatah or Conqueror ballistic missiles were used. Unveiled last year to a soundtrack, if not special effects, straight out of Hollywood. Much has been made of their hypersonic speed, but the key breakthrough for Iran is their ability to change course, both in space and after re-entry.
So what does that mean if they fired 180 of those and didn't get no civilians? Did they want to get civilians or did they not? Because that's a big thing. I know Oh, that's cool, because if the Iron Dome missile defense system sort of intercepts it and say, okay, it's going to go here, we're going to fire a projectile to meet it here, and then it can switch. Can the Iron Dome switch? Is that instant? I don't know.
Last night, along with the older Scud-derived Shahab missiles, there were signatures of the Fatah 1 in evidence, and reports the Fatah 2 was used for the first time.
What capability?
So it was a mixture. A concoction of ballistic missiles.
Reportedly, the Fateh missile series allows it to move as it's in the mid-course. That changes the calculation of where it might hit, thereby making it harder for Israel, for others, to defeat that incoming missile.
Israel's missile defense system is multi-layered. Iron Dome batteries are designed to take out short-range rockets of the kind fired from Gaza and Lebanon at a range of around 40 miles. David's sling intercepts longer-range projectiles, including ballistic and cruise missiles fired from up to 180 miles away. But for last night's attack from Iran, Israel needed its 1,500-mile range Arrow system, which can hit an enemy missile outside the Earth's atmosphere. At least one image from last night appears to show just such an interception, but in comparison with April's attack, many more missiles appeared to get through. Not least this one, near the headquarters of the Mossad intelligence agency on the outskirts of Tel Aviv.
We couldn't even imagine that happening. Can you imagine being in Chicago, Detroit, New York, LA, Texas, wherever? I said cities and states. But could you imagine being in any of those cities or states and just seeing something coming down like that and being fear for your life in America?
And cameras pointed towards the Nevatim airbase in southern Israel also showed repeated hits on the ground.
What is concerning to me is the number of interceptors that they have available, these David Sling, the Arrow series of interceptors. Now, those are even lower in quantity.
In April, Israel was reported to have spent $1.5 billion in shooting down, with its allies, a claimed 99% of Iran's missiles and drones. This time there's no official success rate, Israel instead insisting the attack was defeated, air bases hit, but planes and weapons intact and ready to strike back.
Israeli missiles striking near the heart of Beirut in the latest attacks.
Yo, before we go into that next one. So, they don't even know. I guess that this is the most sophisticated missiles Iran got. So, maybe Israel's just testing them to see if they got anything that can really hit us. Like, let's see if they got something. Maybe it's been some speculation, but they ain't using it. So, they don't know if they can mess with them. Could Israel hit Iran's nuclear weapons and Iran can't do nothing? Let's see what Israel said about that.
Since the 2006 war between Israel and Lebanon, multiple explosions heard as an Israeli airstrike hit the center of the capital. The death toll from that strike now at 9, according to Lebanon's health ministry. A resident tells CNN a Hezbollah-affiliated health authority office was hit. Right now, Israel is weighing its next move, of course, against Iran in retaliation for Tuesday's ballistic missile attack by Tehran. Israel's ambassador to the UN vowing a strong, painful response soon, even as President Biden is urging restraint.
That's the one we just seen.
Did you support an attack on Iran's nuclear sites by Israel? The answer is no.
Oh, I didn't think he was going to answer that. I thought he was going to say, well, we support their right to respond to anything. He said, no, we don't support. No, he said no. But we know Netanyahu don't give a damn about what Biden said.
A right to respond, but they should respond enforcement.
We have CNN coverage across the region. CNN's Nick Robertson is in Tel Aviv, Israel, and Jomana Kardache joins us from Beirut. Jomana, to you first. What do we know about this latest explosion? It was massive, it was powerful, and in the heart of Beirut.
Well, you know, Sarah, it was a long and terrifying night for the people of Beirut last night. We were here on the roof and we could see those airstrikes and the strikes continuing all night. It started at about midnight with airstrikes hitting the southern suburbs of Beirut. Behind me, you could still see some of the smoke rising behind over my shoulder there. And this is where we have seen the Israeli strikes focused in recent weeks. The southern suburbs that is really Hezbollah's seat of power, and the IDF saying it is going after Hezbollah targets there. But then what we saw later on in the evening was this big strike in the heart of Beirut. And it came with no warning, Sarah. We did not hear from the IDF the usual warnings for civilians to leave the area. It was targeting, it appears, a Hezbollah-affiliated health authority in the heart of Beirut. At least 9 people were killed, 7 of them medics, according to that health authority.
Damn,
but
medics.
this happening in the middle of the city, in the middle of the night, something that people here haven't
Not
seen
the
since
medics.
the 2006 war. And even then, that was rare, has really added to that sense of anxiety and apprehension and fear here. We were out on the streets of Beirut speaking to people near the American University of Beirut. This is considered a safe area, and people say they no longer feel safe. They feel that
Prime Minister and the Defense Minister that Israel has the ability to reach targets wherever it wants to in the Middle East.
Wherever
And those
it wants.
targets could range.
Who you talking to? We reach targets anywhere we want. You can't stop us. Our big brother, United States of America. What are you talking about?
From if you will, Iran's nuclear facilities where it processes and enriches. Israel has long said that this is part of Iran's plan to make a nuclear weapon. Iran denies it, but those sites are ones that Israel has wanted to hit for a long time and has held back because the United States has worked has worked sort of a diplomatic channel on that, and are clearly under pressure not to target them now. The economic interests of Iran, like the oil exports, that might be a more readily and easily manageable target because some of those oil facilities are sort of on the border with Iran, right on the sea in the Gulf, and are therefore relatively safer targets to hit. The extent isn't clear, but Israel wants to maintain its deterrence, which means sending a signal that Iran can understand that Iran should cease and desist, not only targeting Israel directly, but supporting its proxies both in the south, in Gaza, and in the north in Lebanon, and the Yemenis, of course, who fired drones at Tel Aviv last night that were intercepted. So it's going to be a strong message. Precisely the targets. No hints at the moment in the past couple of days.
Nick Roberts.
So they don't even know what a target is. They just, like, we could do it, so we're going to do it. We're going to touch your heart. Y'all can't sleep at night. We can't sleep at night. Y'all can't sleep at night.
And thank you to you and to Jomana Karachi.
Aaron is spot on. These are heady days in Israel, and the Israelis do feel like what has taken place over the last several weeks, where they executed the Patriot attacks and followed that on with the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, and now there are reports that at least half of the arsenal that Hezbollah had of rockets that they have pointed at Israel has been decimated. Excuse me. I think the Israelis feel like this is the moment to strike. And that's why the real question now is, are they going to work to finish the job in Hezbollah? How aggressive will they be versus how much? And so the challenge here is that Hezbollah has been backed by Iran for decades, supported by Iran. And the Iranian response just over the last couple of days, in many ways, was trying to show that it still does support Hezbollah while Hezbollah gets decimated on the battlefield. So this calibration of an Israeli response towards Iran also will have an eye on Hezbollah on trying to deter.
You know, you always throw around terms like, oh, fears of a wider war. But what is a wider war at this point? If Hezbollah, if their power is smashed, if Hamas, if their power is smashed, if Iran is somewhat weakened, what does Israel have to fear from Iran? Strikes more powerful than the ones they attempted the other day?
Yeah, John, you're spot on. Look, all the taboos have been broken. These questions that were sort of lingering for the past years about the danger of a regional war. Well, we've now seen Iran strike Israel twice. We've seen multiple organizations backed by Iran striking Israel repetitively since Hamas launched and started this war on October 7th. Hezbollah joined in, the Houthis joined in, now Iran has joined in, and Israel is still standing. And so from the Israeli perspective, they're saying this is the moment to strike. And, you know, these populating northern Israel in a manner that Israelis just cannot sustain any longer, and they do not want it, and that's why they're very supportive of these attacks on Hezbollah.
This news is...
I don't know if they're very supportive of Hezbollah. Let's see what he got to say. But that's the problem. Is like, it's almost like Netanyahu, like, oh, we might get in trouble. We might go to, if you already know you're going to go to jail for life or get the death penalty for killing 2 people, if it was like guaranteed, why wouldn't you go kill several more before they catch you? Why wouldn't you take the police out on a police case? Some people get arrested, do their time in jail, go to the death penalty. Other people, if they knew it was a sure thing, they'd be like, fuck now, you're going to catch me if you can. I think that's what Netanyahu doing. He's playing catch me if you can. We're going to get as much land as we can until... He's trying to be a hero. He's trying to go out a hero for his people, but it's something like over 70% of the Israelis don't agree with him. More than that, I think.
Arab Reform Initiative. He worked at Human Rights Watch for over a decade, where he established the group's Lebanon office and covered the 2006 war between Israel and Hezbollah. He's joining us now from Paris. Nadim, welcome to Democracy Now! Though you are in France right now, you have close connections to people on the ground in Lebanon. Israeli airstrikes hit an apartment building in central Beirut overnight, in an area considered a safe zone given its Christian majority population. Can you talk about what you're hearing from people on the ground, what the situation is right now with, 1.2 Lebanese displaced as well?
Sure, thank you for having me. The offices of the research center I run is actually less than 100 meters away from where the strike happened last night, so I'm very familiar with the area. The overwhelming feeling today in Lebanon is fear, anxiety, and anger for a number of reasons. Fear because the Lebanese have seen what Israel can do to the country since 1978, repeated invasions, repeated attacks, the destruction of the 2006 war, and they've also seen recently what happened to Gaza. There's also a high level of anger because they feel this is a war that they don't understand. This is a war that many of them feel was imposed on them. They feel that there could have been a ceasefire in Gaza which would have prevented all of this, but also anger at a totally absent Lebanese state. Many people are actually still sleeping on the streets, many of the displaced, because the Lebanese government was unable to really put together a proper evacuation plan, and people who are being hosted either through family or friends or through really a wonderful solidarity movement across the country.
So Nadim, could you explain where exactly these displaced people are going? They're sleeping in cars, as you'd said earlier, as well as in being taken in by friends or family in houses. But where in Beirut, are there places in Beirut that are still considered safe, or are they all leaving the city?
Sure. So people started moving initially from the border villages in the south a month ago, but really the movement accelerated in the last 10 days, notably on September 23rd, where Israel in one day killed more than 500 Lebanese, which was the highest death toll in Lebanon since the civil war, which ended in 1990. Since then, talked about more than 1 million people have moved. They're being hosted by friends, but also the Lebanese government has opened now all public schools. So all public schools are being turned into temporary shelter in Beirut, but also all across the country, in Mount Lebanon, in southern cities like Sidon and Tyre. The only problem right now is Israel is increasingly threatening villages and towns further north from its border. Some of the warnings of the last 2-3 days go way north of the Litani River, which Israel often talks about, and includes some of the major towns around Tyre, the biggest city in the south.
Yeah, I realize it's October 3rd. I'm recording this on and putting this out. This happened. They're saying Israel had the right to defend itself. What happened on October 7th, 2023? It happened almost a year ago, and we're still talking about this. It doesn't even feel right saying that, but almost a year ago, in a couple of days. That's how long the people of Gaza have been almost in famine. And now it's moving up.
Nadim, you mentioned earlier that the Lebanese government has not been able to come up with a proper evacuation plan, that the state is really not functional. If you could describe what the situation was in Lebanon prior to the Israeli attacks and its invasion, both in terms of the economy, but also the government.
Sure. I mean, Lebanon has been in a state of protracted political crisis for years, some would say for decades, but it really accelerated since 2018. And in 2019, we had basically a major breakdown of the banking system. It turns out that our corrupt elites were basically running a Ponzi scheme. And since 2019, Lebanese don't have access to their savings in the bank accounts. They are allowed $200, $300 a month, depending on how much money they have in these bank accounts. We haven't had a president now for, I think, over a year and a half. So it's only a caretaker government. It's really a state that has, in a way...
So Israel know that their ability to respond is hampered anyway. So it's probably like the command and control, like who could even act in a time of war. It's probably like they probably don't even know yet. Like, can this temporary government go into war? But if they do, then it's going to be a while before they can get elected. How do we do that? Crazy.
not only become failed, but has almost given up. They almost act as a postal box for messages between different regional and international parties. And the Lebanese really feel that. They felt it particularly, we have to remember, after the Beirut port explosion on August 4th, 2020, where there again, the Lebanese woke up to see large parts of their capital destroyed, and learning that many of their politicians knew that nitrate was being stored in the port right by the city center, and no one did anything. I think there's a strong effort of local organizing right now. And I would add maybe perhaps to one of the challenges facing the displaced is in 2006, Hezbollah's logistics operation was a very well-oiled machine. They were very present. Since the beeper attacks that Israel had done against Hezbollah members, and many of those members, by the way, were not combatants, but were actually civilians somehow affiliated with Hezbollah. Hezbollah has not been able, through its various associations and services, to really fully support as well those displaced from the south.
Nadim, during Israel's last invasion of Lebanon in 2006, you were at Human Rights Watch in Lebanon, looked into the reasons for civilian deaths there. You tweeted earlier this week, you're, quote, very worried there are the same patterns developing now. I'm wondering if you can comment on this. And you also posted a series of comments on X Wednesday in response to what you call, quote, murmurs amongst Israelis and their supporters in the West and our region about creating a new Middle East. You write, don't do it. You've tried before, and each time it's ended in disaster. Elaborate on all of these points.
Sure, yes. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So I spent 33 days in 2006 of the entire war why Lebanese civilians were being killed. And there were really two main reasons, which we're actually finding again today in Lebanon. The first one is that Israel deliberately treats anyone and anything remotely affiliated with Hezbollah, even if they're clearly civilian, as a legitimate target, which is clearly something that international law rejects. And that's why, for example, we saw the attack last night on a medical center. There is no allegation by Israel so far that they've hit any military object other than to say, well, it was a medical center affiliated with Hezbollah. That's clearly illegal. We saw a lot of these attacks in 2006, and we're seeing many of these attacks today in 2024. That's why we actually have now more than 20 medics in Lebanon who've been killed. Some of them have been affiliated with Hezbollah. I should note there are some accounts that indicate that Hezbollah is, obviously we know it's not just an armed group. They have various civilian offices, services. It's probably the second biggest employer in Lebanon after the state. Probably with more than 100,000 employees.
See, they don't tell you that Hezbollah is not just an armed rebellion. They're the second largest employer. That's basically saying everybody bad. I don't think so.
Employees. So if you can consider all of them legitimate, like Israel has been tempted to do, you can just imagine the carnage and the crimes that will be committed. And the second main reason of such a high death toll is really what actually the Israeli leadership called in 2006 the Dahiya doctrine, Dahiya being the southern suburb of Beirut, where basically Israel decides to use massive and disproportionate force on civilian areas and civilian objects where Hezbollah could be supported as a way of kind of getting collective punishment and of deterring and frankly trying to push the population to say, okay, we give up. Now, we're seeing these same patterns. We're seeing these same patterns in the last 10 days with the intensification of attacks on Dahiya, and that explains why we're seeing such high civilian death tolls. Which brings me to my second point. You know, with these attacks, we started hearing, particularly after the assassination of the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, but also after Iran strikes, we saw a number of Israeli politicians, including Naftali Bennett, who's the former Israeli prime minister, saying, this is our chance to remake the Middle East. You know, but we've heard this before, for those of us who are from the region. We heard this in 1982 when Israel invaded Beirut to push out the PLO, and they tried to install a president and a regime in Lebanon that would be friendly to them. You know what? How this ended, other than the massacres and the crimes, it ended with the creation of Hezbollah. We heard that in 2006 again, when they said, you know, we're going to go in and we're going to destroy Hezbollah, and this will be the end of it. Hezbollah came out stronger than before, and in 2008, Hezbollah used that strength to actually control Lebanon even more.
The way you're doing it matters. Like in the Marine Corps, in the United States military, you go somewhere, it's supposed to be the hearts and minds, right? They go there, they build schools, they build hospitals, and they say, listen, whoever your local population is, your local terrorist organization, don't worry about them, we're here. Israel's going in and they say, no, pow, 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 everybody target. Well, that's going to turn them against you, and eventually you're going to create even more. If you kill 100, if there's 100,000 Hezbollah, after this war, it's going to be 300,000 Hezbollah.
By using some of its weapons against other Lebanese. The U.S. made the same mistake in 2003. They invaded Iraq and they said, you know, we're going to refashion the Middle East into our own, you know, into what we would like to see, into these pro-Western governments. And that has been an utter failure, and the U.S. is about to leave Iraq. You know, the problem is with all these strategies, all these campaigns, is we know that this overwhelming use of force cannot change people's agency. The region does not want to be a satellite of Israel or a satellite of the U.S. And by the way, the region does not want to be a satellite of Iran either. The problem is the region is not really being given much of a choice, and that's what's happening in Lebanon, in Palestine, and so many other places.
Well, let's go, Nadeem, to comments made by Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, who said on Wednesday that Israel should take out Iran's nuclear program. He was speaking on CNN.
Sometimes history knocks on your door and you got to seize the moment. If we don't do it now, I don't see it ever happening. And now is the moment. I also want to explain why. Because Iran's strategy, it had two arms that were sort of defending it, or they were its insurance policy against an Israeli strike, and that's Hezbollah and Hamas. But those two arms are temporarily paralyzed. So it's like a boxer out in the ring without arms for the next few minutes. Now is the time that we can attack, because Iran is fully vulnerable. The Islamic Republic of Iran, it's time to hit, destroy the nuclear program.
So that was former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett speaking to CNN. And now let's go to another former Israeli Prime Minister, Ehud Barak, speaking to CNN's Christian Amanpour, who asked Barak whether he agreed with the comments Bennett had made earlier.
In order to run a full-scale attempt to change the Middle East, we need all these alliances of blessing led by the United States. Israel is very strong. Israel cannot rearrange the Middle East on its own.
So that was former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. So your response, Nadeem, to what they were saying?
Don't do it.
Oh, that's it right there. Don't do it. And just that guy saying seize the moment, they like, behind the scenes, you know, the U.S. could be like, hey, we're going to pretend like we don't want you to do this. Like, do it, because we know we just unfroze all this money for Iran, and we don't know how to stop them from getting this, and they got support from Russia and China. We know how to stop their nuclear program. Well, hey, no. We're going to pretend to not like everything you're doing and say, no, I wouldn't do that, but then let you do it. So then after they do it, we say, okay, you got to stop. Come on, man. That's the final straw. Come on, you hit that nuclear program. We got to stop. But, I mean, they would have to stop it there. That would be the absolute most. It might be too late, but if it's not, that damn sure got to be the last straw.
Don't do it. You will fail. You failed in the past. I mean, we know that there is another pathway. Look, there are two central questions that, as long as they're not resolved, the Middle East is not going to know peace. The first one is the Palestine question. And the second one is a question that has been central to the region since 1979, which is, what is the legitimate place of Iran? And by trying, since the 1980s, with the Iran-Iraq war, and since so many other conflicts since then, of trying to box in Iran and trying to sort of attack it, reduce its size, the only outcome has been Iran sort of pops back out from another door and uses non-state actors to establish its influence. It's done this in Lebanon with Hezbollah. It's done this in Iraq with the Shia militias. It's helped with the And Iran has shown us that it can actually be very good at using patience. This is what it did after the U.S. invaded Iraq in 2003. And guess what? A few minutes later, we hear about new sales of weapons, billions of dollars being transferred, intel being provided. Right now, the U.S. is acting as a full enabler of Israel's what I would consider not only aggressive, but actually extremely dangerous policies, which actually lead to Israel acting as a spoiled child of the U.S. and of the West, which leads it to take positions like indicating that and treating the the Secretary General of the UN as persona non grata. Which, rule of law country would do that?
Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org.
Shout out Democracy Now! Please take note of their thing, democracynow.org/give. Go to them. I love their stories, what they be doing out there. Listen, that's what's going on in Israel and the Middle East. Does the U.S. does the U.S. want Israel to take out Iran's nuclear program? Because that can't be the end, right? They just can't knock off the nuke and say, cool, we the big boys on campus, right? Does Israel knock off, is what they're saying Putin would do if he take over Ukraine and Crimea, then it's like, oh, he's not going to stop there. It's going to be like Hitler all over again. Well, I understand why Putin's doing what he's doing. It's just tactical, and he don't want the U.S. letting the Ukraine join NATO and having military bases there that close to him. I understand that. But Netanyahu's a little different, and he's out of pocket with what he's doing. So I don't understand how people can be two-sided, how they can like us, like the Ukraine defending itself against Putin, but let Israel just take over the citizens of Gaza and say, nope, this ours, nope, this ours, this ours. We'll see what's going to happen. But either way, I mean, it just has to stop. It's just sick. You cannot make a new... The Middle East has always... Iraq, Afghanistan, all those places have been notorious since Napoleon, Genghis Khan, whoever. They just cannot take over these places because the terrain and the people are so witty and the terrain is so harsh and these people live here for years and you got to really know the landscape to try to take over. So I'm sure if Israel was to keep directly hitting Iran, then Hezbollah and all of them would just go full-fledged suicide bomber mode, not care if they come back out and be hitting them, boom, 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 suicide bomber style in guerrilla warfare because they can't fight them. Israel shoot, they shoot. Israel shoot. There got to be an onslaught, one day of reckoning. This is how you get like these days in the Middle East. It's like the 7-day war, the 10-day war, because they went full blitz out there. There's no need for this though. We need to start looking towards space and other planets and other signs of life in the outer world. This needs to be fixed. There should be no homeless. There should be a universal income. Everybody should be living decently. It's just, I don't know. Let me know what you think. I think eventually this has to stop. Either they're going to let Netanyahu finish this off and take Iran's nuclear program and make them blow it back to the Stone Age and make them have to do it all over again, and somehow he gets out of it. But I don't see it. I see Netanyahu getting arrested somehow at the end of this. Like, two wrongs don't make a right. Hezbollah and Netanyahu could be wrong, and who's paying for it? The people of Gaza, or the Palestinian people, if you want to say that, and the Israelis. But let me know what you think, man.